Namaskar and welcome to Sunset Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about the Quad leaders meeting in Tokyo. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you. Beginning with, we have with us in the studio Dr. Sreeram Chaulia joining us. He's a foreign affairs expert. We are also joined by retired Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, Director of India Foundation, and former ambassador Deepa Gopalan Wadhwa is also joining us. She's been India's ambassador to Japan. Welcome both of you as well to Sunset TV. I'll begin with you, Dr. Chaulia, and let's first start by quickly summarizing the road so far in terms of the Quad leaders meeting which we have witnessed, and also, key tangible outcomes vis-a-vis this leaders meeting which took place in Tokyo.
Vishal, we are making a lot of progress on multiple legs. There's been a push for infrastructure. Now there has been an announcement for $50 billion funding for the next 5 years to beef up physical and digital infrastructure in the entire region. Because this was one area where, the Chinese dominance was quite perceptible. And many smaller countries did not have options and choices. So now Quad is very clearly coming forward on this front, because we realize that Chinese power is through creep. It's not like all at once. So it's not a very crude one. They have a military dimension, but they also use loans and debt in the name of infrastructure to try and capture strategic real estate in the whole region. So now I think we are trying to put a break on it and saying there is another game in town, and it is called Quad. That's one. The other thing is we have announced a new maritime surveillance mechanism and monitoring. And this is going to be a naval thing among 4 member countries. And we hope to also involve Pacific Island nations, ASEAN countries, the other big stakeholders in the Indo-Pacific region, and who are not Quad members, but who are now, many of them have joined this new initiative, what President Biden calls the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework.
IPF.
India was present at the foundation of it. And in a way, Quad is going to be driving this IPF agenda forward also. So I think on all those fronts, there have been new developments. The old ones, the existing one, the vaccine delivery and clean energy, all those projects also, I think we are giving a boost, thrust with new financing mechanisms and new efforts to pool all our resources together. This is a plurilateral initiative, like 4 countries. So naturally, they have to bring all the resources together. And on the military front, I would say that the warning has gone out. They have said categorically, Quad leaders said in the statement that we oppose unilaterally redrawing boundaries by force and changing status quo by force, especially in Indo-Pacific. So what we are trying to say is it's not only what Russia has done in Europe. Our concern is this region. And I think in that sense, the whole focus of the international community, with Biden being present and meeting with with his 2 major allies, Australia and Japan, and the major defense partner India, what we are saying is that we have a plan now going forward, and we are putting some concrete measures in place, new initiatives, and also trying to draw in the whole region together in some kind of a collective security architecture. That's something I see emerging out of these new summits and the new announcements.
Dr. Chaulia, Prime Minister in his remarks mentioned a few things, and the one aspect which we would like to understand is when he mentioned that the Quad should show tangible benefits for the region or for the countries in the region, and work on the positive and the constructive agenda. So what is he referring to in terms of the tangible benefits for the region? Of course, there are various areas on which the cooperation is being talked about, as all 3 of you mentioned. But specifically when we're talking about tangible outcomes, and that too, of course, these nations in the Indo-Pacific would want to see some results and see them quickly.
Yeah, I think what he's talking about is that this is a multi-dimensional partnership. It's not only a military, and because some of the ASEAN countries were a little bit wary of associating with Quad because they thought it could be just a military alliance that may entangle them or may squeeze them in between China and the US alliance system. So I think what we're trying to show them now, and there's been a lot of disappointment about the US pulling out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, not being involved in the economic needs and development of the peoples of this region, which was making it the leveling the playing field for clearing it off for the Chinese to come in and dominate. So I think what we are now trying to do is touch the lives of ordinary people. A lot of these Indo-Pacific countries have been named by the UN recently as highly vulnerable for food, energy, and financial crisis because of the double whammy of the pandemic as well as the Russia-Ukraine war, inflation and all kinds of pressures. So some of these countries, we've already seen what happened to Sri Lanka. So I think there is a real fear of instability in a lot of these countries. And that's why Quad are saying that collectively, we are more capable countries, we are relatively stable countries with good economic management, and we have resources. We're going to pool all those, and we are going to try and shore up some of these vulnerable countries. So I think finding some role model countries which could be weaned away from this debt trap.
Okay.
I think Sri Lanka is ideal because already they are suffering as a result of the Chinese neo-colonial attitudes and intentions there. So likewise, in the Pacific Islands, Australia has been very worried about Solomon. Solomon Islands has recently signed a security pact with China, which would bring their navy and their police onto the...
and in fact, the Chinese foreign minister is going to be on a visit in Solomon Islands.
So, and the Australians have been very worried about it because historically that's been their sphere of influence. Historically, Indian Ocean region, we don't want Chinese to come. So I think what we are trying to tell these countries is, because they always ask us, okay, you are the alternative to China, what can you give us, right? Both the elites and the ordinary people. Indeed. So now we are saying we've got this whole bunch of ideas and projects, concrete projects that we can implement on the ground for connectivity, for trade, for industrialization, for transportation, for green energy and disaster resilient infrastructure. That's another big idea of the Prime Minister, which has been adopted by all the other Quad countries. So I think those things will ultimately win over these countries, because right now, at least for the last 10 years, before Quad came to being, China was like, monopolizing that space, saying that we are the main partner for development. Now we are saying there are other alternatives and we can do it. And I think the last point I want to make, Vishal, is we are also trying to say that democracies can deliver. This is Biden's big thing, Whether he can deliver is a different matter, but collectively we are trying. And what we are saying is the Chinese model, they were saying, is far superior, far faster, more efficient. You want $10 billion? I'll just write out a check and give it to you right now. You build your bridge or you build your railway line. Now we are saying we are also going to bring in money. We are also going to bring in expertise. We're going to make you climate resilient. Most of these island countries are highly vulnerable, as Ambassador was mentioning.
But in a more democratic and structured manner.
And in a consultative way, where the local people have a say. Because what the Chinese are doing is they usually buy up the elites, and then there's grassroots backlash against them, like we are seeing now in Sri Lanka. So I think now we are basically approaching this as if we can provide an alternative model to this Beijing consensus. It is no longer Washington consensus. That is the old idea of US dominant. Now the US has realized alone it cannot counter China in Asia. So now it's going to be it's going to be a democratic exercise with 4, 5 or 6 or 7. Quad plus is not a reality yet, but I believe through this Indo-Pacific economic framework, it will be a de facto Quad plus that is coming to being, and that will show the power of multilateralism and democracy. Ultimately, we want democratic forms of governance, both domestically within countries and also in conduct, in international relations. Authoritarian states cannot be trusted. Indeed. To be democratic in their conduct.
Quick concluding comments from you, Dr. Chaulia, before we bring this discussion to an end.
Vishal, the thing is, Quad is really calling a spade now. There's no ambiguity left, total strategic clarity. They have said we are against militarization of disputed territories. They even said we are against maritime militias. This is what China is doing. They're using their coast guard, they're using swarming tactics. Then their navy comes in to then shoo away the Filipinos or the Vietnamese and whoever else they have disputes, or the Taiwanese. So now we are saying that this kind of gangsterism in the high seas is not going to be acceptable. Now the proof of the pudding is in eating, and we have to implement a lot of these tough talk. So going forward, before the next summit, a lot more maritime coordination will also be necessary apart from the economy. So economy and security, the two pillars, good progress, but much more to be done.
We'll have to go hand in hand. There it is. Thank you so much, Dr. Chaulia, General Katoch, as well as Mr. Wadhwa, for sharing your views and insights.